If I can ask everyone to please take their seats so that we can start. Can everybody please take their seats? We want to start our opening session, please. Well, a good afternoon to everybody. It's really wonderful to see you all gathered here again in Cambridge for our 2022 Gulf Research meeting. It's wonderful, and I'm very excited to have everybody here in person after a couple of years where we've had a little bit of a break. Of course, 2020, the GRM was canceled. Last year, we were completely virtual, but this year we're very excited to at least be able to hold the meeting once again with a strong in-person participation, as well as also an equally number of people that are going to be connected to us online and participating in the workshops in a hybrid format. So this opening session is also live streamed, so I'm hoping a lot of people are watching us that will also be joining as paper presenters over the next couple of days. For those who don't know me, my name is Christian Koch. I'm Director of Research at the Gulf Research Center. And I'll be sort of taking you through the opening ceremony here. The opening session will guide you through our various speeches and the discussion we're going to have. So again, it's great to have you all with us. I think that COVID came in between, of course, but the many issues that the Gulf region faces, of course, did not go away. There continue to be many challenges out there. And more has actually been added, I think. We have questions now about economic future, about the energy transition in the Gulf region. We have the added impact of the Russian invasion on Ukraine that's providing additional challenges. We have all the impact that the pandemic caused and the outcome of that we still have to grapple with. And I think this, again, underlines the need for a meeting such as this, as the Gulf Research meeting, to try to help us a lot of times better understand, better analyze, add, of course, to the literature on the region, dig deeper in some of the implications and the medium to long-term consequences of what the past 2 years mean for the region and how this also impacts the region going forward. So in that sense, it's really fantastic that again, we were able to gather together here for the next couple of days to have some of those in-depth discussion. And I'm very excited about also going around and seeing everybody, then attending the different workshops and engaging and listening to what I'm sure is going to be very many insightful and interesting discussions to happen. But let us get started here in our opening session today. And if I can invite Dr. Abdelaziz Sagar, the chairman of the Gulf Research Center, to come up here and provide his welcoming remarks. Dr. Sagar, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. What a great pleasure to stand again in this podium after we missed it for 2 years. 2020 was a very tough year. And I tell you, some people, they wish to forget about that year, as it did not exist. It was harsh on everybody. Mother and father, they have to teach their kids through the iPad. Kids could not attend school. Professor and academic and faculty and teachers could not go to their schools and university to teach and to see people. Logistics was difficult. Everything was difficult. But somehow, we at GRC decided to survive. And we did, alhamdulillah. Thanks God, because we thought this is a challenge and we have to live up to that challenge. So we remained committed and we continued our work in a virtual basis. We used the online as a base to continue. By the way, I have a speech here of 15 pages, but I'm not going to read it. So I decided not to read it, but speak my mind and welcome you, and thank you for attending this year. I know it's difficult. This year we have a hybrid conference because 80 is participating on our workshop through the online in the different 10 workshops that we are organizing. And 150 are with us today, up to 170, I think, for those whom they will finally get their visa and access. When I arrived to the Heathrow Airport a few days ago, I stand for 3 hours almost on the queue for the immigration and the luggage. But that shows how much we are still committed, that even I will stand for 3 hours in the queue, yet to make it and come and be here and be with you and never miss such an opportunity to welcome you all and to enjoy the beautiful intellectual debate. The whole idea of the GRM is to get people from all over the world to discuss about issues related to the Gulf, whether it's politics, economics, environment, education, women's issue, different topics, energy, but then be committed and attend these things and be, with everybody. And I think it was a great pleasure for us. It was a great pleasure for us. His Excellency Ambassador Khalid Al-Khatir from Qatar just joined us. Ahlan wa sahlan. Yes. So it's a good and difficult also issue, but at the same time we remain committed. When I look at the statistic today, 3,500 alumni we have, those whom they have attended during the 12 years, 127 workshops we've had, and almost each workshop, it's a conference by itself, as Dr. Yasser Suleiman called it today. He said each workshop, almost it's a subject, it's a workshop by itself. It has a publication, close to 60 books in terms of publication that we have delivered over the period, and also thousands of papers, quality paper that we have in our archive on the different subject. We've addressed all the social science issues that we can, and I think it was a great satisfaction to all of us. This year we have, 10 workshops. It's our 12 years. Last year we have done it virtual, and still, despite of that, we were satisfied with the result and the outcome and the publication that took place after the completion of the workshop. I'm sure there are many people with us online because we decided to broadcast this opening ceremony. A very special welcome to Her Excellency Professor Inas Al-Isa, that she decided not to let me down when I invited her. And she said, I'll come. I was here, 2010, but not as a paper presenter. I was supposed to do a paper presentation, but I did not do it at that time. But I'm glad to be, back again to Cambridge. And certainly we would like to welcome her. She ran a very important university in Saudi Arabia, which is Princess Noura bint Abdul Rahman University, with close to 50,000 students. They will be there in that university, but an outstanding university in Saudi Arabia. And again, she will be doing an outstanding presentation that we all look forward to listen to it and do, she was doing. Again, a very special welcome and thanks to the Assistant Secretary of the United Nations, the Special Envoy to the Humanitarian in the Ukrainian crisis, who is unfortunately catch Corona. I don't know, Corona still is back again, by the way. Watch it, please. So stay immune. But he will be joining us online through Zoom later on. And also the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Cambridge University, who also catch a Corona, but he will be also joining us through that one. Unfortunately, His Excellency Dr. Naif Al-Hajraf, the Secretary General of the GCC, who was supposed to be with us today, but due to the visit, the sudden decision of President Biden to visit the region, and he's going to be greeting 9 heads of state coming, all the GCC plus Iraq, Egypt, and Jordan. They will be coming all to Jeddah. So unfortunately, he could not make it. We've just had on the 12th of this month, 2 days ago in London, we've had our policy forum, which was quite interesting. We wanted to present what we call the strategic review of the Gulf region, economics and political, security, environment, economics, and energy, which was quite good, well attended, and a very interesting debate we've had. We learn more from people questions. When people ask questions we learn a lot from their question, and that's really what makes it, very interesting for us. Nevertheless, as Dr. Christian Koch, he mentioned in his talk that the region is still very volatile. We still have a lot of difficult time. War in Yemen, still there. Hashd al-Sha'b in Iraq is still there. Syria, situation is not easy. Libya, situation is still there. Dispute between Algeria and Morocco, still there. Iran nuclear program did not reach an agreement with the American and the B5+1. Many issues, so still in terms of the IR student, I'm sure they're very busy looking at all the different subjects. And I think through such an open discussion and intellectual debate and being all together, I'm sure they will, try to think out of the box and, produce the quality research that everybody is looking forward, toward that one. I don't think I would like to take more of your time, but certainly I would like to thank you all for all those whom they really took the time and really wanted to come and attend and be with us today here at the Gulf Research Meeting at our 12th, meeting. Also, we all would welcome you later on to join us, of course, for the dinner as usual. And normally when we are in Cambridge, we like to have our dinner early as possible. So we almost remind you with your childhood. So, that you will have an early dinner here, so then you can go to bed early and be ready for the next day. Anyhow, thank you very much for all of you. Thank you for our listening, audience, whom they are, joining us through the video streaming, and look forward to listen to an interesting talk and presentation. And Chris, the floor is yours back again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sagar. As you already mentioned, yes, despite all of us being, I think, vaccinated multiple times, the pandemic somehow is still around, and even GRM continues not to be immune from that. And so as Dr. Sagar mentioned, we've had actually 2 people who were supposed to join us here today catching COVID, and of course we can only hope that they don't have any serious implications and recover very quickly. But we're very happy that they even agreed to still tape a message for us, and as well as being online in a minute with His Excellency Amin Awad. But now we're going to move sort of into a little bit of the technical bit, and we'll have some opening words also from the University of Cambridge and from Professor David Caldwell, the Vice Chancellor for Strategy and Planning here in Cambridge. Of course, we at the GRC very much value our relationship with the university, not only in terms of hosting here and being able to hold the Gulf Research Meeting, but also in terms of many other issues on academics and strategy and policy that we like to cooperate with Cambridge on that front. So if I can ask the technicians to please play the message from Professor Caldwell.
Good evening, everybody. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you today to the Gulf Research Centre's 12th Annual Gulf Research Meeting. I'd hoped to be with you in person, but sadly yesterday I tested positive for the dreaded COVID. So unfortunately, I'm now isolating at home and I'm not able to be there in person, which is a great shame since I was looking forward to the meeting. I'm also here representing the Vice Chancellor, who also is unable to attend in person. I'd like to begin by taking the opportunity to thank Dr. Abdulaziz Sagar, Chair and Founder of the GRC, more generally for his contribution to this important initiative. Under his leadership, the GRC has developed into one of the leading international conferences on the study of the Gulf region, showcasing the work of scholars from the Gulf and elsewhere, bringing together many voices and perspectives in one location. I personally have very active interests in collaborating in the Gulf region, and I'm a frequent visitor to the area. In fact, I've been there 3 times now since December, which has been a welcome relief following the COVID lockdowns. So it gives me particular pleasure to give this welcoming address. It's very encouraging to see a wide range of eminent speakers at the meeting, including the president of Princess Noor University in Riyadh. I often travel to Riyadh and from the airport drive past the Princess Noor University, which is an extraordinary construction, I understand has an equivalent landmass to that of Beirut, which is hugely impressive. And also Mr. Amin Awad, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, who is currently the UN Crisis Coordinator for Ukraine. The Ukraine conflict, which is very sobering, underlines the need for collaboration and understanding typified by the GRC if we are to tackle the world's problems head on, and sends a clear message to this conference. As the Gulf states diversify their economies, it is important to continue to discuss and work through the challenges and opportunities posed by the social changes these bring, from global warming and climate change to the ethics of AI being of increased global focus. Of course, engaging young people as we go, given that they, quite simply, are the custodians of the future of our planet, is fundamental to any endeavour of this nature. The programme for the conference promises real engagement with a wide range of extremely important issues. The individual workshops again focus on the Gulf states within the global community, examining ways in which issues like maintaining peace and the resolution of conflict, again, particularly important given the situation in Ukraine, the use of artificial intelligence, youth culture, and sustainability all impact on regional behaviour, including the barriers that need to be overcome and the opportunities they present. These are areas that align closely with research interests at the University of Cambridge, and a number of our most important and acclaimed academics, such as Professor Vikram Deshpande in engineering, Professor Sir Richard Friend in physics, and Professor Patrick Maxwell in clinical medicine, have found success working with colleagues in the region on a wide range of topics. The Cambridge Department of the History of Art continues to engage closely with the Gulf on Islamic art, which is indeed welcome and much needed cultural addition to the university. And just next week, there will be a series of research meetings planned in Cambridge with Khalifa University from Abu Dhabi on graphene, water management, and medical devices and instrumentation. I will be involved with that personally and look forward to it very much. And the university has been the beneficiary of considerable generosity from the Gulf region. This includes the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences, which established the Kuwait Mathematics Program over a decade ago. The late His Majesty Sultan Qaboos of Oman, who established 3 professorships in modern Arabic, Abrahamic faiths, and mathematics, which are thriving. And we note that only 16 of such prestigious professorships were created, and indeed Cambridge has 3 of them. And we are absolutely privileged to host the HRR Prince Alawid Center of Islamic Studies, which promotes the understanding of the role of Islam and Muslims in wider society in this global age. One of our main strengths here at Cambridge is that the university is a truly bottom-up research-driven organisation, where individual researchers are free to pursue their own lines of inquiry and collaborations, and bringing so many excellent critical minds together here over the next few days promises to spark new questions and new collaborations. I'm therefore personally delighted that colleagues at this university are working in partnership to address global challenges impacting the Gulf region and elsewhere. I hope you have a very productive workshop, and I'm sure you will find Cambridge a welcoming and vibrant community of deep thinkers. I wish you a very successful conference, and again regret I can't be with you in person. Enjoy the conference.
Despite him not being able to hear me directly, I do want to thank Professor Caldwell for his nice words. I can certainly relate to his, when he said that when he lands in Riyadh airport and then drives into the city. I have driven by there so many times, and I'm always so much impressed when I see the university as we pass it by from going into Riyadh. So that was certainly something that immediately came to my mind. And I thought it was also very interesting, of course, that he mentioned how on so many different future issues that are still we are trying to grapple with. We are then more closely in academic examination and an exchange over what the implications are and what the trends are, that's where really the relationship with the university can be extremely helpful. So thank you for his remarks. Again, the second person who I'm very sorry that he's not being able to be here today, but who we really have a very close relationship with is the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, His Excellency Nayef Al-Hajjaf. He's been in his position now for a little bit more than 2 years. We at the GRC are strong proponents of closer cooperation, closer integration in the region. We believe very much in the institution of the GCC. We have always had a very intense relationship. The previous Secretary General was here many, many times, Dr. Al-Zayani, also opening the GRM. We have always appreciated all the support that we've been receiving from the Council and the Secretariat in Riyadh. So I'm very happy again that he immediately insisted on also taping a welcome message, despite the fact that he has to be today in Jeddah to lead the summit meeting for the GCC on behalf of the GCC states. So I'll now will ask again, please, to play the message of His Excellency, the Secretary General.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Abdulaziz bin Sagar and the Gulf Research Center for their kind invitation to address the Policy Forum and the opening session of the 12th Annual Gulf Research Meeting at the Cambridge University. Both events provide a needed platform to highlight some issues, not only regional, but also globally. I was so much looking forward to participate in person. However, my remarks will be delivered virtually due to urgent commitment at the same date. Wishing you all a successful discussion and addressing the various items on the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, May 25th of 2022 marked the 41st anniversary of the Gulf Cooperation Council, known as the GCC, an organization that has been playing a very important role to stabilize and maintain the peace and security for the region and the world. For more than 40 years, the GCC engaged constructively with the international community, fulfill its obligations to combat terrorism, adopt a very responsible and balanced energy policy which takes in account the interests of both the producers and the consumers, and answers the calls for any humanitarian and development aids needed. At the same time, and at the domestic front, the GCC member states demonstrate national development plans addressing human capital, economic diversification, and quality living standards, along with infrastructure uplifting to support the development plans. Needless to say that the last 40 years weren't a challenge-free. However, the GCC journey remains focused and stable. Looking forward, new challenges emerge and remains real. In addition to the challenges imposed by the pandemic, the region's security, which is very important to the world security, needs to be addressed. The world today is facing many challenges that requires our collective and undivided attention. As the world is still coping with the post-pandemic reality, which affects our way of living and how we conduct business, we still have a long way to go for full recovery. However, one lesson was learned from the pandemic that we, as a human being, are stronger and better off to deal with any challenges if we work together and collectively to maximize our resilience. At the same time, we need to address regional and global challenges that dominate the agenda, from Yemen to Syria, from Iraq to Libya, Lebanon, Palestine, and the Horn of Africa, Afghanistan and Ukraine, food crisis, energy supplies, and economic growth, cybersecurity, terrorist threat, and climate change, all of which require every country's contribution to make the world a better place for our children and grandchildren. The GCC remains committed to work with the world to maintain and enhance the regional and global security. For example, the GCC hosted the Yemeni talks at the GCC Secretariat General headquarters in Riyadh from March 29th until April the 7th of 2022. As a result, the region witnessed a positive development with the establishment of the new Presidential Leadership Council in Yemen. The establishment of the Presidential Leader Council in Yemen is a positive sign to find a political solution. The GCC has always sought a stable and secure Yemen and has rejected the brutal attacks by the Houthis on Yemeni civilians as well as across the border toward GCC member states. The current truce is placed in Yemen is another welcome development that allows for such political solution to mature. We appreciate the effort led by the UN Special Envoy to Yemen and will continue supporting all the efforts to end the war in Yemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are appreciative of the work that is being done by the Gulf Research Center to promote knowledge for all and for being a source of knowledge for the Gulf region. And once again, I would like to thank Dr. Abdulaziz bin Sagar and the Gulf Research Center for this initiative, and I wish you all the very best.
Again, thank you to His Excellency Dr. Hajraf for those words. I think his emphasis, especially on the collective approach, is one thing that we should not forget when we're trying to find solutions also to the region. The Gulf Research Center itself has signed an MOU earlier this year with the GCC to also support in the various research activities and where we can play an important role. And we also had the pleasure of actually hosting Dr. Al-Hajraf in a discussion at the Munich Security Forum in February, where we intensely debated the issue of regional security. So definitely we're always thankful for their cooperation and his full support for what we try to do. Now we're going to try to go online and see if we use the whole breadth of technology here that we need to have hopefully learned also during the COVID times. And I'm hoping that we can get His Excellency Mr. Amin Awad to join us via Zoom. Again, he unfortunately contracted COVID and could not join us. But I'll give this a second. And Your Excellency, Mr. Awad, I hope you can hear me. It's wonderful. We'll try. Okay, we cannot hear you yet. Maybe you are muted. Otherwise, we'll try to fix it from our end. Not yet, cannot hear you yet, but maybe we can fix this in a moment. I just want to briefly introduce you. I haven't had the chance to do so. His Excellency Amin Awad is the UN Special Envoy, Coordinator for the Ukraine crisis and an Assistant Secretary General with the UN. I think you've spent your whole life in humanitarian issues, much of it dedicated to the Middle East region, including Syria, and Iraq, where you have worked very hard. I know that you've also been the head of the Middle East and North Africa section at the High Commissioner of Refugees in Geneva, so you really bring a breadth of experience to our meeting here, and we're very much welcome and thank you for taking your time, and despite the fact of maybe not feeling too well, actually agreeing to join us also online. So hopefully we have managed a little bit the audio issue and that we can hear you, and otherwise I would invite you to start your remarks, please, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Dr. Koch. Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you hear me now.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll continue. Dr. Koch, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, yes. We can hear you well. Maybe somebody could let him know that we do hear him.
Okay, I'll continue to speak then. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Koch. My greeting to esteemed Dr. Abdulaziz Sagar and colleagues online. Indeed, I am now the Secretary General's coordinator or crisis coordinator for Ukraine, a job that I have picked up in February. The war in Ukraine continues, started in February, and in the last weeks, we have about 16 million people displaced, internally and externally, and the impact of this war on the country also is very clear. 20% of the area of Ukraine went to the other side in this war. There are now passportization and rubleization of some regions of Ukraine that in preparation for being part of Russia. In the Lugano conference last week, the 3rd of July, the Ukrainian government put the cost of the reconstruction of Ukraine at about $750 billion if the war stops today. And that is mostly due to the destruction of almost all fuel depots in the country, electric and energy sources, transport, be it railway, tracks, railway stations, highway or bridges, some of the ports. And also, as we speak, the humanitarian situations become severe because a deadly winter is on the way. This is a place where temperature drops to below zero to freezing level. And we could expect a huge winterization program in the few weeks that's left between now and September, October, when the weather really starts to turn cold. But the war really did not only impact Ukraine alone. The war became an East-West kind of a war. It had a global impact. There is the NATO factor. There is also the whole impact of Ukraine war on food, energy, and finances. We have seen a meltdown. We have seen inflations going from as low as 8% to 41%. We have seen prices of fuel and energy going up 3, 4, 5 times in part of the world. And also we have seen shortage of food, and we are seeing analysis of 69 countries that can be facing problems, similar to the one that Sri Lanka is facing today. No cash liquidity, no food, no energy, and increase of prices, inflation, and of course unemployment and total freezing of the economy. We have about 1.7 million people who are food insecure. We have another 400 million people who are already in need of food. And unfortunately, we have about 46 million people that are on the gates of famine in many parts of the world and hunger and in need of hands out. So this war really has a far-reaching impacts. And when it comes to also then global security, weapons of mass destruction were deployed to be ready. For the first time now in 50 years, we see Finland and Sweden wanted to join NATO and in the process of joining NATO. That tells us something that things are really moving on a very fast in many directions. And the whole issue of food, if we go back to that subject, with the blockade of the Ukrainian ports, Ukraine used to export 60 million tons of food to the world, 60 million tons of food, out of 7 ports in the Black Sea. Monthly, they used to have 100 ships going out of these ports, carrying 5 million tons a day. 5 million tons a day, a month. That is about 60 million tons a year. And that food used to go to middle and low-income countries. Now they're not having that food, and that's the situation we are in. We saw there are negotiations now between the UN, who's leading that negotiation, Ukraine on the one hand, Russia on the other, and Turkey being the the country that has control over the Bosphorus, because of the Montreux Agreement of Switzerland, where they regulate the movement of ships in and out, and hopefully we're halfway into this negotiation. Hopefully something will give in. We also, what is really worrying in this war is, for the first time, as I said, the deployment on the ready of weapons of mass destruction, and the fear that set in the area, in Central Europe in particular, and Western Europe, of such phenomena that we haven't seen for a long time. If I look at what can be done now, really out of this crisis, and the lessons that we have learned, and not to get into the same situation where almost 70 countries, 69 countries are going to be facing food crisis, and also the impact that now the world at large is feeling. Perhaps one should look at contingencies that we can resort to in the future. That first of all, 25% of the food, the grains, if we talk about what's coming from Russia and Ukraine, it's a big number. It's a big sizable number of food to really be coming from one region. And I think there ought to be recommendations, and I mean, we look at the Gulf and the GRC also to look at this. There ought to be an alliance for food. Countries that have arable lands and fertile lands can be asked to really commit millions of hectares, totaling perhaps hundreds of millions of hectares, that can produce food, and countries can be supported to increase output and to diversify geographically and the type of crops and otherwise, so that the world does not find itself in a situation like this. A Black Sea, as small as it is blocked, strategically as it is, central as it is, but the whole world kind of going into paralysis as far as food is concerned. The other thing is that we notice here is the whole collapse of supply chain. Ships have not been coming to the Black Sea. Supply chains that are dependent on the transport of food and the delivery of food and the handling of food from the Black Sea ports, is Russia or Ukraine. Now, some of them at the far end of the line, the smaller ones, the middle-sized one, are also declaring bankruptcy or already are bankrupt. If the food delivery from the Black Sea is resumed, the prices are going to be higher, maybe twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. We don't know. Time will tell. And that's for simple reasons. Insurance cost is going to be high for these ships going into a war area where mines or where seas are mined. 1, 2, the supply chain, as I just mentioned, also the prices are going to be high because there are few of them and the competition is high, and therefore the demand is high. And when we add up this, we find that the food, which was labeled once as the Black Sea food for middle income and low income countries, was at a lower price than the other type of wheats and grains that we're getting from Canada and the US and other places, let's say, it's not going to be that low cost or cheap anymore. So there are so many questions marks, and there's so many alarms that we have to really look at and try to draw contingencies, as I just said, for us to really find a way forward. And therefore, this is the 2 recommendations I just put as a teaser for discussion later. But of important also, one has to look as is war going to really end now? From what I see and what I observe, I think it's going to take a while and it's going to drag on. And one has to look at what will be the next consequences rather than sitting put, waiting for consequences and events to take us, to take over the scene. I think the prices of food will continue to increase. We think that the war of energy now going on between the East and the West, be it gas or fuel, is going to continue. It will make life difficult. Inflation will continue. Prices will continue if fuel and energy continue. And one also have to look at the realities that now, for the first time, we see also new alliances now that are emerging in the region. We have Iran and Russia on the one hand, and we have other clusters that are really looking at their interests in such fluid situation. So the world is not in a good place. And the war in Ukraine, in that small corner on the Black Sea, it's really impacting many countries in the world, including Brazil, who does not have fertilizers. That's also another big country that is supporting hundreds of millions of people in Latin America with food. And we have many countries in Africa, especially in the Sahel and Horn of Africa, that could be facing an outright famine, starvation. And the food prices, even in developed countries, are going to be increasing and therefore affecting many of the industries or the trades or commerce. So these are my quick and fast impressions of my time there. And I will be happy to rejoin you again for any questions or discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amin. That was a very comprehensive overview, although I have to say quite a bleak picture when we're looking at what we are facing, what might be coming at us in the coming years. I want to use, hopefully, the opportunity maybe to keep you online for another sort of 10 minutes and also maybe ask the audience if there are a couple of questions that you want to raise to Mr. Amin, and be happy to take them on and point them toward. Let me maybe just start by posing you one question. As you were talking, I was thinking that this is a problem overall with increased conflict and, of course, also increased flows of refugees, of displaced persons, of internally displaced persons. Seems to just get worse and worse every year. I think we have the greatest number of refugees ever in history at the moment, and we seem to be, topping just one crisis after the other. With your sort of broad experience also, what's going wrong in the international system? What really needs to happen in order to reverse some of these trends, which, again, they're impacting all parts of the world. We have tremendous sufferings, and you sort of have a sense that there is something that is not working properly. What can we do, not only in the Gulf region? Of course, the Gulf region already plays quite a big role in humanitarian and development aid and trying to contribute to looking at international solutions. But where do you see sort of the big issues within the broader international community that will start to take us on the right path going forward?
Thank you, Dr. Kossov. I think this is a very valid question, an important one, and it's always in my mind that when situations are left for too long to be forgotten and frozen, conflicts as we call it, as what we have now in Syria, what we had before in Armenia and Azerbaijan, the Nagorno-Karabakh, that was a frozen conflict for a long time. And there are many spots now that they're left and people are left to really to their own devices. Now, I think there is a need for a mechanism where some of these conflicts are really prioritized and the impact of the conflict should be analyzed so that the world can understand that these conflicts in small places, and they could be as far as they may be, but they will have an impact or another on the world. If we look at some areas that in Africa or even the Middle East that have fertile lands, arable land that can produce tens of millions of fertile, land that can produce crops that can be exported to the world. These places should be saved from conflicts. The conflict should be, these are strategic places, and the conflict should be resolved. All machineries of the world, the power that may be, should be really deployed to do that. We now, as we can see, three things. One, food. Two, energy. Three, finances, and other goods. This should be a criteria, not leave alone the humanitarian, of course, and the political and strategic on the wars that will always inflict communities and people. The other thing is when you have a big war happening, like in Ukraine, for example, the whole world gets sucked into this machine. The whole discussion between the East and the West on the fuel war, the food war, and the war itself, and the arm race. So the world gets very busy with one big strategic war, and then the rest of the wars of this world, the smaller ones, are forgotten. And if they're forgotten for 2 or 3 years, then these wars will be forgotten forever. If you go back in history, short history back, we look, there is still 11 million Syrians that are displaced. There ought to be a political will for those people to go home. There are 6.5 million inside displaced, and there are 5+ million outside in Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and Egypt, and the rest of the world, and the far abroad and the near abroad. Those who are in close proximity and those who are inside, the 11 million that I'm talking about, there ought to be a solution for them to go home. And the conflict should not be frozen for so long. And that applies to so many other situations around the world. So I agree with you. There ought to be a commitment to do that. There is another issue that's not in the news as often, but it comes from time to time when we see people drowning in the Mediterranean or other words, and that's smuggling and trafficking. It should be one of the most important agenda points when we have, is it billions of dollars trade, billions of dollars a year. People are smuggled between Asia to Europe, East, West, South, North. You look at all the smuggling route from Sub-Saharan Africa north to the Mediterranean. You look from Afghanistan, Southwest Asia, South Asia, coming toward many of the seas and toward Europe, and also now movement out from Africa to Latin America and back to North America. So there are. This is also becoming an area that is for some reason, not getting really due attention. It needs law enforcement organs. It needs an international kind of mechanism to handle that. We look at the legal side of it, the criminal side of it. There are also 3 kind of groups work on this. They collaborate. We have people who are trafficking and smuggling people. We have people who are trafficking arms, and people who are trafficking drugs. And they communicate, they collaborate, they connive, they exchange information, technology, and they help each other. So something ought to give in, and this has to be really broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that very comprehensive answer. Let me just be patient for me with a minute just to see if maybe there's a question or two from the audience that I can gather together. I have to step a little bit out of the light here so that I can see everybody. Please, Adel, up there on the top.
Thank you. Always annoying with questions. If we could just ask the Secretary, thanks for wonderful insights. What are the limits, or if you like, the logistical and cost bottlenecks to Constanta and Gdansk? How much can be done through those 2 ports?
Can you repeat the question again? Because maybe everybody else can
speak up themselves. A little
bit. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Testing.
Question more time because you were broken, sorry.
Can you repeat, Christian, maybe?
Yeah, can you just, talking about the ports?
So just in terms of the cost and logistical bottlenecks through Gdansk and Constanta, how much can be done with German support and with unlocking the zero terminals and efficiency, et cetera, et cetera? What are we talking about in terms of numbers as a percentage of?
Yes, Your Excellency. The question sort of reflected on unlocking sort of the logistical bottlenecks in terms of financial costs. What are we experiencing, and what can other countries do to overcome this problem of the logistical bottlenecks that we're experiencing?
You mean the shipping out of Ukraine?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the problem is political and military one. The ports are blocked. The Black Sea is mined, and there ought to be an agreement between Russia and Ukraine on the one hand that is now being negotiated by the UN to really lift the embargo or the blockade of some of these ships so that the food can go. Of course, there is a cost related to this when it comes to logistics and otherwise, and that costs have not been declared yet. However, the problem is right now is the agreement between Russia and Ukraine on really agreeing to demining part of the sea so that ships can go out and escorted through the Bosporus to Turkey and out to the rest of the world. The cost, I think, is the easiest of this. I think the most important issue is the political one. and two is the practical agreement on the ground. What is the role of Turkey in helping facilitate the movement of these ships? What's the role of the UN on observing the safety and the commitment to the agreement by both parties, be it Ukraine or Russia? These are the issues of the hour now. Thank you for the question. It's a very important question.
Okay, do we have any other questions? There's one more on the top.
Thank you, Secretary General. You would like to know why the West is treating Ukraine crisis different from Syria and other crises? Why didn't we emphasize so much on Syria, Lebanon, and in Africa?
Well, as I said earlier, this is the case whenever you have a country that has a strategic global importance, as now Ukraine does, but also the war between Ukraine and Russia is not between Ukraine and Russia anymore. The war really did involve most of Europe, when you see where the refugees went to, and when you see the NATO versus the Russia, it is a global, of a global nature, this conflict, and therefore, it has implications, a negative impact, as we said earlier, a global impact of the war on food, energy, and finances, and therefore, it is getting attention, and rightly so. But that doesn't mean it has to get that much attention at the price or at the expense of finding solution for other wars, be it in Syria or other parts of or Africa, for example.
Great, thank you so much. We really appreciate your remarks. They were extremely comprehensive and interesting. You are, of course, welcome to still stay with us and listen to the other discussions, but we really appreciate that you even made the effort to join us today despite your illness, and we can only hope you have a quick recovery, and hopefully the symptoms are not too severe for you. So thank you so much for your time and joining us here, and we look very much forward to being in contact with you in the coming weeks and months. So thank you so much, Mr. Amin.
Thank you very much.
Now it's my real pleasure and honor to welcome Her Excellency, Dr. Inas Alisa, the director of the Princess Noura bin Abdulrahman University in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. It's really a pleasure to have you with us. I know your background is more in the health side, in the health sciences, rather than in the social sciences where we concentrate here at the GRM. But it's such a pleasure to have you with us. And as I said, I drove by the university so many times. So we're really interested to hear from you. And may I ask you to come and provide your address to us, please. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. And I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Abdulaziz bin Sagar for the kind invitation to be here. I am honored to be here today. And to be honest, I designed this talk as a story. And as a story with a timeline and images and photographs of real Saudi women, because I'm here to say the story of Saudi females. The title of the story is On Equal Grounds, because that's the exact wording we use back home to describe the recent reforms that took place in Saudi Arabia. The whole story starts only 63 years ago with the first access for females to education by a formal royal decree in 1959, opening the first schools in Saudi Arabia. Shortly after that, university allowed females to study by correspondence, and beyond that, there was a stagnation period for quite some time. So I'm just stopping by the biggest milestones in the history of women empowerment in Saudi Arabia. So in 2005, women had the access to be members in the Chamber of Commerce. And after 3 years of that, we had the first female deputy minister in the Ministry of Education. The last most important milestone before Vision 2030 is the women appointment in the Shura Council, which is the highest consultative body in Saudi Arabia, and then women participation in the municipal elections. That's it. So over a span of 57 years, these are the only major milestones that I can speak about in the story of women empowerment, in the history of women empowerment, until the inception of Vision 2030 in 2016. But before I go into the vision, so what was the status of women? Were they prepared for this change? Were they prepared to be, or did they need the change at the time? First of all, let's start with, again, with education. Saudi Arabia has the highest correlation between gender and advancement in mathematics, with females being better in math in early education. We're among the top. So women are really excelling in general education. Women are also excelling in higher education. So we have women outnumber men in the enrollment and the graduation from university, and not just the enrollment, but even the highly specialized disciplines such as health, IT, and generally STEM. But despite these great numbers, the unemployment rate among females was much higher than men. And women workers were only 7% of the workforce, with an economic participation of only 19%. So despite the fact that we had 57 women graduate from health schools, we only had 25% of the workforce in health were females. And despite the fact that we had 62 female graduates from schools of business, only 7% of people working in ICT were females. So clearly, this indicates that we needed a change. What was the change? Again, the inception of Saudi Vision 2030. In a nutshell, the vision is basically a blueprint and a roadmap for the future, built around three major pillars: a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation. And under these three big pillars, we have 96 strategic objectives attained through 11 vision realization programs, all inclusive of women. This is a direct statement from the vision. The vision clearly states that women are untapped potential. The vision clearly states that women are another great asset, and the vision empowers women and enables them to strengthen their future and contribute to the development of the society and the economy. In fact, one of the goals of the Vision 2030 is to increase the participation of women in the workplace. And to do this, we have two mechanisms. One is through initiatives and projects, different entities performing these initiatives, and the other, and which is more impactful, is the legislative and the social reforms by the political willpower. So, for example, I'll throw in some examples today. So we have 7 initiatives focusing on women under the National Transformation Program, which is one of the 11 vision realization programs. One of these initiatives pertains to building leadership capacity among females, and we are honored at Princess Noura University to host that program. And I think today is a great opportunity to invite you to come and visit the university and perhaps visit the Female Leadership Center, inshallah, in the university. There are 4 initiatives under the umbrella of the Human Resources and Social Development Ministry, all pertaining to supporting women in the workforce and increasing the inclusivity and diversity in the labor market in Saudi Arabia. Perhaps the most advertised royal decree that is well publicized in the West is the allowing women to drive. It's not just putting a woman behind a wheel. It signified a new change and declared the political willpower to really enable women to be as autonomous and independent, to take choice in their life in general. But the less talked about and perhaps more impactful legislative reform in the country is the amendment of the male guardianship law, and most recently the announcement of family law reform, which really regulated women's personal affairs in a way that was unprecedented in the history of the country. Now, please look at that picture. It looks normal to you, right? So what? Female sports athletes. This is the first soccer female team in their trip to go to the Maldives to play an international game. This was a dream. This was really beyond a dream, and this is one of the manifestations of the Vision 2030. Of course, the leadership. The vision manifests itself clearly in the empowerment of females by the appointment of female leaders. We had the first female woman ambassador, Princess Rima, here in the picture, 4 women vice ministers in 2019, the Ministry of Education, 13 women in the Saudi Human Rights Council, which constitutes 50% of that council, 3 women cultural attachés, and in fact, earlier this month, we had the announcement of 2 major positions in the country for females. One is the Deputy Minister of Tourism, and the other is the Assistant to the Secretary General of the Ministers of Councils, and we're very proud of that. So here I'm only touching the surface. Really, we can't keep up with really the good news that are taking place. Another great picture. Again, I'm just telling a story, and these are real women, real pictures, real images. The Vision 2030 opened new career prospects for females. So we have women now in the police force and in the military, opening options and opportunities for girls in previously unwelcomed sectors. Sorry, someone talking? Okay. Picture, Saudi female racer. Her name is Masha'al. So I've given you a glimpse of what the vision is, a number of initiatives under a number of entities taking place all at the same time. So how did this really, was this impactful? Has this really induced change? Or can we actually feel this change? Can we measure it? Can we assess it? In fact, first of all, unemployment dropped from 33% to 22%. Women workers increased from 7% to 27%. Female participation in the economy increased from 19% to 35%. Remember the story of women in the healthcare? It only increased by 3%, but that increase is qualitative. Look at the female physicians. We increased the female physicians in the workforce from 11% to 16%. Now the biggest change, the biggest notable change, took place in the ICT sector. So remember, we had 57% of female graduates from colleges of computer science, 7% at the time, 25 prior to Vision 2030. Now the female participation in the ICT sector is 28%. Generally speaking, 41% of the civil sector workforce are females. One-third of the small and medium enterprises are owned by women, and the number of females registering their own businesses has doubled over this period beyond Vision 2030. All this was reflected in the international indices for Saudi Arabia. And here I'm using an example of the World Bank report on women, business, and the law index. And here you can see from 26 in 2010 to 80, the score jumped to 80. How? Since I am in Cambridge, I expected this question, so I come prepared with the graphs and the numbers. And as you can see here, this is the performance of Saudi Arabia since 1971, and you can see the sudden jump that took place from 2011 and beyond. And here you can see clearly the change in mobility and marriage and parenthood, which are the relevant personal matters that matter to a woman. Now allow me to gloat a little bit about Princess Noura University. So you heard 2 of the esteemed speakers today touch upon the beauty of the physical facility of Princess Noura University. We're strategically located near the airport, so anyone going into town will end up seeing Princess Noura University. And again, I repeat the invitation to everyone here at the audience. Princess Noura University is the largest female university in the world, not just in terms of size, but in terms of number of students, faculty, and the diverse number of programs offered at the university. We have 4 clear strategic objectives: Obviously, one of them is women empowerment. And we host 3 schools for STEM, engineering and science, and business administration, engineering, and science. What's the third? And computer science, I'm sorry, I forgot completely computer science. I'm not used to giving talks at this time of the day. So we have 23% of our student body are in these 3 STEM colleges. We have 5 health colleges. We have 18% of our student body in health schools, and we have a school of design, state-of-the-art school of design, and I also look forward to all of you visiting it. So how does Princess Noura University play a role in this ecosystem in the country, serving women and empowering women throughout? We do this through a number of mechanisms. One, because we're a university, we study and we measure and we assess, of course. So we assess the impact of legislations. We celebrate and spotlight the success of women. We support women leaders. We offer new degrees, progressive degrees, to open new opportunities. And we innovate in our degrees so that our females can be competitive in the labor market. So here, for example, one of these entities that serve this strategic objective is the National Observatory for Women. It's a research entity that is linked to the General Authority for Statistics for data gathering, and basically it generates an annual index to evaluate the effectiveness of women-related initiatives. That's a major role that the university is playing at the moment. This is an example of the index in 2019. As you can see here, we bridge the gap in education and in the health between males and females. We still have a long way to go in the organizational dimension and in the economic dimension. And the 2021 index will be released shortly. We also have an annual prize for women's excellence under the patronage of the King of Saudi Arabia, annual. Most recently, we received generous funding from the government to start a national museum for women to document the history of women in the region for the past 300 years. We also hosted, again, as I mentioned before, one of the initiatives by the National Transformation Program, which is to build capacity in leadership or leadership capacity building in females, to train 1,700 female leaders across the country. So far, we've graduated 1,000, so the first cohort, 1,000 graduates from this program, and we did this in partnership with INSEAD School of Business. Now, we're a university, so data is power. We took all this data from the 1,000 trainees, used that data to start a know-how in leadership capacity building in the country, and we started the Women's Leadership Center in Princess Noura University that goes beyond just the training, so it gives a business solution to businesses, professional development, and basically localizing leadership training in the region. The first product of this center is a program called Qiyadiyya, done in collaboration also with international entities. And basically, we provide networks for women, and we just graduated the first cohort, 60 female leaders from government and the private sector. I want you to read this statement, if you don't mind. Where do you think this statement comes from? Where would you say it came from? Leadership? Straight from Vision 2030. So the Vision 2030 not only started initiatives empowering females, empowering women, doing social reforms, but it also inspired academia to do things differently. So at Princess Noura University, inspired by that quote, we are evolving from higher education just for learning purposes to beyond that, higher education also for economic development. And to do this, now we have a new and innovative way to reform our curricula. We came up with a Sigma degree. A Sigma degree is basically a collaboration. Any new program in Saudi Arabia, in Princess Noura University, starts with a collaboration with a business partner to define the competencies and the on-job training and the career path, partnership with a legislative partner to understand the legislation around and the job needs for this job. Now you would say, well, this is obvious and it's always done. Actually, we design it so that it's a lifelong journey with early exit points that coincides with career path points. And I'll give an example for this. We opened in 2020, the year of the pandemic, while we were all in lockdown. We started 21 new programs, all in areas that were also unprecedented, such as filmmaking and animation and photography and all that. This is an example of one of the latest degrees that we offer in the university, which is a Master's in Women's Studies. And also it's done as a Sigma degree, so a student can graduate after 1 semester, after 15 hours with a certificate in women leadership, or continue to graduate after a year, complete the 1 year and get a higher diploma in women's studies, or complete the thesis and the capstone and graduate with a Master's in Women's Studies. We do this through our collaboration with universities around the world. And I'm very proud to announce that we, in the last 2 months, we signed with 6 UK universities, and we're very proud of these collaborations, and we hope to do more. And for example, one of the most valuable collaborations that we have at the university is our collaboration with Swansea University, and we're opening the first Masters in Energy in September for females, offered in collaboration with Swansea University. Also, the Vision 2030 inspired us to go beyond and create global citizens, not just graduates of the university, but really global citizens. And we did this in collaboration with the UN Staff College to train our faculty on SDG training. And we now embed the SDG to create that know-how and understanding for our students about the issues of the world. We also value local partnerships. So we partnered with the Saudi Federation for Cybersecurity and Programming and Drones, and we created an academy for coders. This academy grew bigger, and through it, we were able to start and collaborate with Apple to start the first Apple Developer Academy in the region and in Africa, and the first cohort are graduating end of this month in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, remember the story of female graduates from colleges of computer sciences, 7% participation in ICT, increased to 27%. We felt at Princess Noura University we could help advance this number better and create better opportunities for female to join the workforce in ICT. So we started our own pink tech company that actually allows free working hours and virtual working for females from all around the country, tapping the potential of the graduates, the high number of graduates of females across the country. Last but not least, athletics. You saw the big smile I had when the slide that pertains to of our first soccer team. I'm in England. I believe everyone here loves soccer as well. And in Princess Noura University, with the great facility that you can see from the outside, it's just as great, if not even better, from the inside. So we have now 21,000 students engaged in 16 different sports in Princess Noura University with a jump of 400%. And I know Dr. Bensagher was concerned about COVID, and he said, what happened during COVID? Look, even during COVID, we had online workshops for athletes, so they never stopped. The future, my last slide. So after all this storytelling, what does the future hold for us? Years and years and years of stagnation, and then a sudden and progressive advancement in every direction. The future, I think, holds promising sectors for Saudi females. We have the quality of life service sector, very promising. We have the gig economy and freelancing, which is the sector of choice for the current generation. We are also targeting the entrepreneurial and small and medium SMEs in general, and of course, the sector of technology. So I hope in this storytelling of on equal grounds that I was successful in showcasing what the country has been going through in the last years from 2016 and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Could you, if I can ask you to have a seat here. Sure. At the far end, if you could, at the far end, please. Well, Dr. Inat, that was really a fantastic presentation and a wonderful overview, so thank you very much. Definitely, as somebody who's been going to the kingdom for about 15 years, I am simply amazed every single time that I now return to Saudi Arabia, and you really see changes happening almost in real time. It's such a fast-paced environment, such a dynamic environment, and such incredible changes that you see every single time you go. And I remember that even prior to COVID, I went to Saudi Arabia 4 times in 2019, and I felt every time it was a little bit of a different Saudi Arabia that you saw coming, and that change is just continuing. What we want to sort of do here now for the remaining half an hour that we have is, as Dr. Abdulaziz already mentioned earlier in his remarks, is to look a little bit, since we have the presence of Her Excellency here also, to look at nearly the impact of COVID on the education sector, and also to involve everybody here in the audience to join us in that discussion, to maybe present some of your views and some of your experience that you've had. We will, in fact, in this GRM, we will have one dedicated workshop to the issues of challenges in the COVID environment, lessons for higher education in the Gulf, and we have our 2 workshop directors there, so that's certainly something very pertinent already to the discussion, but it'll be interesting to hear also from the rest of the audience maybe some of the experience. Maybe I can just pose an initial question to you, Your Excellency, in terms of the overall progress that you've showed in terms also of Vision 2030. We're now sort of 5 years into the vision. Where do you see the current? What's been sort of the challenge that you still need to crack? The one that you maybe has been the most persistent that you still need to tackle? Where do you see the main challenge now that we see these developments going on? What's there for you that where you really want to focus your energies on the next year or so?
Excellent. Do you want me to take all the questions first and then?
No,
because I tend to elaborate a lot.
That's
and
fine. No, please, we'd like to hear from you, of course.
If we can take like 2 or more, because I really want to get the feedback of the audience, if you don't mind, and then I'll address all the questions, if you don't mind.
I'm up for
so if there's any more questions, I'm an academic, so I'm used to questions, and this is the only way I can operate.
Maybe I think we have,
Thank you.
I see 2 hands raised here on my left side, and maybe we can take those on already.
Sorry, I beat you to it. Thank you very much for that very interesting presentation.
If you could just introduce yourself so that we know who you are.
Absolutely. So I'm Hassan Al-Hassan. I'm a research fellow for Middle East policy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Thank you again for that very comprehensive presentation. Now, since this is a research gathering, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about what your universities and what your personal sort of future plans for enhancing the research output of perhaps Princess Noura University in particular. Universities in our part of the world, Arab, Middle Eastern universities in general, don't tend to fare very well in terms of global research rankings. They don't produce a lot of world-class research. I don't have the numbers in mind. Maybe those who focus on higher education in the region can tell us a little bit more. But at Princess Noura University, what are your plans to ensure that the university produces world-class, high-quality research? Thank you.
Okay, and I think then we had a question right next to you, Hassan.
Good afternoon, Jean-Luc Saman from the National University of Singapore. My question related to one of your slides that looked specifically at rural areas, and I was wondering if, looking at all the statistics you showed us, if you can talk about the challenge of women empowerment in rural areas compared to what I assume to be, in a sense, easier in the bigger urban centers. What kind of challenge do you see there, and what are the policies that might be in the making at the moment on that? Thank you.
Great, and I'll take one more from here, down here at the bottom.
Thank you very much. My name is Rinaldo. I'm one of the directors for workshop number 9, which is in higher education and COVID. And we're very much, impressed by what Princess Noura University has achieved so far. And indeed, you're a phenomenal, inspiring leader. We want to ask, how do you think has leadership been challenged by COVID, and how has it impacted the different initiatives in your university, and what are some inspiring stories probably that you want to share to us in terms of policy implications, assessment, human resources, all those staff-related activities that were made during the COVID-19, and what probably advice you'll give us as higher education leaders and members of the academia, so that we'll be able to deal with other related challenges, especially COVID in particular. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent question, and a perfect lead over then to our discussion on the COVID after this to follow. So maybe I can turn this back to you. That's
Wonderful.
Already quite a big agenda for you to tackle.
So I'll start with your question on the challenges. We are very much focused, and we have a plethora of initiatives and programs. So the quality of the execution of these programs is of great importance. For example, when we started the leadership program, the leadership capacity building program, it was funded by the government. We had the partnership of INSEAD, but we had to monitor specifically the first cohort. It had to be just perfect. We had to assess and monitor and reassess to make sure that what we are doing is actually in the right direction. So one is the quality of what we're doing. That's very important, and we have to really keep balances and checks going the whole time. The other thing is enabling the females in different sectors. So you don't want to just focus on those who are very highly qualified. And I go back to Rinaldo's or Johnson concern about rural areas. Very important to note. No one left behind in Saudi Arabia. So the number of universities increased from 8 universities to 27 in every region in the country. And so they're government universities. So these are just I'm just talking about public universities. So we have 27 public universities scattered all around the country. So females have access to universities, but to higher education. But again, the challenge of job opportunities in rural areas, of course, I wouldn't call them rural areas. It's mostly urbanized areas. It's just not as centralized as, just like the same challenge that is faced everywhere in the world. And this is where Pink Tech, Noura Tech plays a major role, because we have a virtual platform and a freelancing, and we get projects, and we recruit the best talent irrespective of where they are, because we want to create these opportunities for women across the country. And it's been lucrative so far. It's a new company under our endowment, by the way, and it's working so far. It included, our target is to include at least 30% outside Riyadh, working in the company. Back to the challenges. So the challenge of quality, measuring the impact of an efficacy, and making sure that you actually advance the right caliber. So it's not just parity and power, it's really ensuring the right talent for the job. In terms of research ranking, Hassan, we could go on and on and on the initiatives that would work for X university versus Y university. In Princess Noura University, first of all, in 2019, we started a set of incentives to promote. We wanted a 1X. We wanted to create the 1X. We wanted one paper per faculty per year. Next year, we wanted to increase the number of publications. After, we wanted the impact of that research and the citation. And we have research areas, focused priorities, and enablers, of course, in the university. So we're very focused. This year, hopefully, we will be ranked in the Times Higher Education for the first time, the Times Higher General Education, and we hope, of course, to be among the world universities in the Shanghai ranking in the coming years. Back to Rinaldo and how COVID impacted the universities, I see the silver lining. It was the COVID really reflected the investment in the infrastructure, in the digital infrastructure in Saudi Arabia. We went online the same day it was announced, March 8, March 9, schools just took over, universities took over online. We had, prior to COVID, we struggled with a number of faculty not wanting to join online, and we wanted to evolve from didactic teaching to active learning. And one tool to ensure this transition from didactic teaching to active learning is using online education and online assessment and online dialogues. And so the silver lining in COVID is that we were ready, we had the infrastructure, we had the toolkits, and then basically all our faculty joined and aligned with this. So in terms of policy implications, for sure, now 30% of the delivery of curricula has to be online. Students have to submit evidence of their projects online. So it actually implicated how we, again, deliver education. Assessment, it was difficult at first, and people were skeptic about students doing exams online, but this was tested now over 2 years, and it's actually, and we have really great tools to ensure that students are being assessed accurately through online. I think I covered all that.
Great, no, fantastic already. We try to get Dr. Zager and Dr. John also into the discussion here. I mean, I'm not an education specialist myself, so I looked up last night and really discovered some numbers that tell you how hard the COVID pandemic really hit the education sector. Worldwide, there were 184 countries that faced school closures for months at a time. In total, 1.53 billion school children out of school for prolonged periods. Meaning that in total, almost 90% of children in the world were impacted by school closures throughout. You mentioned just now the absolute importance of investment into infrastructure. Still, we have a problem of 1/3 of students finding themselves completely cut off because they didn't have that kind of access or the kind of technology. And maybe for John specifically on the economic front, I was just seeing here, just in the UK, there was £2.6 billion loss in terms of the investment into higher education, also because of no more foreign students who pay higher tuition amounts to the universities here, who weren't able to travel, who weren't able to come to the universities. So, I mean, these are just, already some staggering figures. Dr. Abdelaziz, where do you see this from the research side? What's been the impact that you've also faced within GRC overall? Where do you see the main issues to be confronted?
Well, we are part of a global network called Council of Councils. This is almost a 30 or 40 think tank worldwide that we used to meet twice a year. And when we had to convert from actual physical meeting, because normally we meet before the G20 meetings that takes place in any country, For instance, this year we have to meet in Indonesia because the G20 will be in Indonesia. And we had to do a virtual one. And even when we had the G20 in Saudi Arabia, and I was heading the team on the think tank and the role of the think tank on the G20, it was not easy. It was plenty of, of hours in front of the screen convincing the other. And sometimes, yes, either, some people would have to go through a learning process of how to use the machine, how to be active with it. Zoom is easier than Microsoft Teams. So finding out what is the easiest system to use. Again, if you have a presentation that you would like to share it with the other, also it was not easy in the beginning. For many people, presenting the paper in the way that it's understandable for the participant. Also, it was not, there was some difficulties, that people had to go through, but eventually, there was a lot of learning process. And the good thing that we have somebody from Argentina, somebody in Singapore, somebody in China and Korea, in Japan, and somebody in Washington, I'm in Saudi, and we're all together in front of a screen that, we all bring us together. But we all missed the physical presence, being together, brainstorming together, because in the online, you have a limited time, and that's also teaches everybody how quickly can you deliver your message on point. Don't take your luxury time to, explain so many things. You have a clear point, you have to deliver it because you have, other participants with you and so. So it did affect somehow the quality of research to some extent, but soon after, when everybody start, we find it convenient that we can organize more activity through the online, and we can get people to participate into the, and then we can have a larger audience also. It depends on the subject and who's our audience. So, we can have a larger audience through the, the online participation. But, we overcome that, and it was okay.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. John, your initial thoughts on this, and what have you sort of experienced, and what do you see as the biggest challenge to be confronted?
Right. Well, I think I'm lucky I did it.
No, we hear you.
You hear me, okay. Yes, I don't know, I have some education. I don't know if it's high education, but from this experience, I'm very lucky I didn't get a divorce from my wife. So, because it was very challenging, I think, having kids, as you said, and as Dr. Abdulaziz said, during COVID. The economic aspect of this is that the world has learned to be also virtual. And I think that the labor market globally has learned, and a lot of the big businesses will have to eventually adjust to a hybrid system. Mm. So physical is all nice, but I think the world is becoming more accustomed to being a little bit more homey and less of an office-based mentality. And of course that has implications for property markets, for mobility, for transportation, and so forth. We would need to adjust ourselves in a new reality, which is that the older people like myself hate to commute, and the younger people will want to stay more at home and not commute at all. So I think universities and education will change dramatically over the next 20 years. People will not want to go physically to a university. Certainly from the wonderful presentation about Princess Noura, I think it's the right time in Saudi to be a woman. I mean, if I was in Saudi, probably I would want to be a woman myself. But I'm Greek, so, Greeks change. As you know, historically have this tendency. So in any case, I think that the global economy will have to adjust, And now what makes a difference is to offer people this hybrid employment opportunity. So that is going to transform the way we see things. COVID made us realize that you can still do business and you can still do certain important tasks from home. You don't need to be going and coming. And of course, from my experience, the going and coming is to commute between, unfortunately, I have this odd situation where my family is in Oxford and I come to wonderful Cambridge. And it's the worst combination because I think the UK made it so that if you are based in Oxford, you will never go to Cambridge. And if you're based in Cambridge, there is nowhere on earth you will go to Oxford. So these two great institutions have decided to be very divided. And this train that will have to happen, it will not happen during my lifetime, especially with the way politics is unfolding. And I think, finally, I would say that the world will have to become more aware of these complexities of mobility and this virtual situation. Of course, certain jobs have to be conducted manually, but what I think Saudi Arabia did very well, because of its advanced technology capacity, you were very able to shut down the country, put everybody inside, but still produce. And if you look at the economic numbers, it had the lowest output decline compared to most of the other countries. Probably the only exception was Egypt, but I would doubt the Egyptian numbers all too often, but that's a different question. That's me as an economist speaking. But overall, I think the impact is far greater globally than what we think today. And this will evolve over the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, great.
Can
you
I
wanted to
comment?
come? Yes, of course.
Thank you,
please.
John, for your kind words. But I would just, I echo that, and I'd say that it's great nowadays to be in Saudi Arabia, whether you're a man or a woman or a child, an adult or a young youth. So it's a really great place for everyone. And interestingly, the comment made by John about the students not wanting to go to university, I expected the same thing. And I said, well, this is the most disruptive intervention we've ever had in the history of education. And of course, reforming education, especially in universities, is very difficult. It's very difficult to change the mind of faculty. Faculty are trained to do what they do really well, and they are trained to defend their ideas. So reforming a curricula or starting a new degree in a department is almost mission impossible. So I thought, well, we have to do things differently now. Students don't want to come to the university. We should switch to more interactive, perhaps using virtual reality, for example, for training students in their co-op, using simulation center to train students in the health sector. But guess what? We did a survey, and 90% of students said they wanted to come back to school. Even with synchronized teaching, and even with one-on-one tutorials, and even with the digital access and the digital literacy that we worked really hard on for our faculty, still they wanted to be back on the campus. Okay. So the life of the campus was still something the students looked forward to. Even the library, we really thought that with everything becoming digitized and with the online resources and the teaching material available for them online, that you wouldn't see that traffic in the library. Again, we have an amazing library at Princess Noor University. You can see it coming from the airport. And so students were booking because we had a limited number of people allowed in the building. During that transition of COVID, we started with 100, and then we increased it to 200, and we always had all the spots filled. Everyone booked and wanted to come to the library. Yeah, I agree with you that we have now a hybrid system. So really, COVID helped us to evolve into a hybrid education system.
But also I think company like those companies, they have education system online. also are benefiting, and we start seeing courses. One of our GRC director, he did build a program on the geopolitics of energy. And he was surprised that he had 50,000 subscribers, to that, program or to that education lecture series and so on. So there is demand despite of the difficulties there, and because people, they look at it as convenient that they can join in some time, and companies that selling program or doing or acting, even a lot of I think here Professor Suzanne Qureshi, she did participate in a policy program at Harvard University online, which was accredited, program on public policies. So again, university, they find a new opportunity, they find a new program, there is a new business also, and extending the horizon of the audience and also of the participant that, learn from that.
Mm-hmm. Let me turn it back also to our audience again. I don't know, Professor Susan, I saw you earlier, maybe had your hand up. So I can go ahead and bring you in right away. And then I see another hand in the top. I'll come to that. And in the middle there.
We should ask Professor
right here in the first row first,
about Cambridge University experience on the online also.
Also.
Yeah.
I want to thank all of you, but especially Her Excellency Prof. Inas for her comprehensive, important information about Saudi female in general and our mission and ambitious 2030. Just I want you, it's very short, to give advice to our young females, Saudi female and all females in the whole world, how they really achieve their goals and in a way that they prove themselves. This is one. And I want you to give advice for our young researcher here. We do have many of PhD students. What is your advice to them to be a great researcher and published in ISI and high impact important journal in future? I want to thank both Dr. Abdulaziz and Prof. John for their excellent comment. And we do have, as Prof. Inas said, this crisis according after COVID-19 and how we drag students. Initially, we thought it's a problem. And later on, we found them, as she said, they want to be attendance and even blended learning. We use it in King Abdulaziz University that mixed both online and physically. They prefer to come to university. Thank you all, and just I want to hear your advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, we have the gentleman here on the side.
Hello, everyone. I'm Radhakrishnan Sharma from KL University.
Can you speak louder?
Hi, everyone. I'm Radhakrishnan Sharma from KL University, India. Thanks for such a wonderful gathering after 2 years. I was missing it. This is not a question, rather a compliment to Her Excellency. When you started speaking, I thought that this is a reflection of light on your face, but the moment it goes, your speech, I realized this is happiness from inside, which is brightening the hall. Well, I recalled 2008 when I was working in Bahrain. I participated in Tamkeen. I raised that the first teacher of a child must be paid attention to, that is the mother, the female. And unfortunately, the dais opposed it. They didn't appreciate it. In 2008, in a conference, I proposed that the first teacher of a child, that is a mother, a female, must be promoted in academics, in education, and this was not appreciated by the gathering that time. I'm happy to see that your university has really done excellent work.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yasser.
You go up to the top one there. We have the hand up from the lady.
Chris, we need Yasser to come.
Okay,
to
I will come to Yasser then also. And Jassim.
Thank you so much for the wonderful panel. My question is also directed to Her Excellency. Thank you for all the informative data and story you shared. I also like to share my story about Saudi Arabia. I'm now a professor at IWP's postgraduate School of National Security and Statecraft in Washington, D.C. I teach students energy strategy and energy security. I remember along my journey, I was very excited to go on a study in Saudi Arabia because they're very strong in petroleum engineering, but when I contacted the Saudi embassy, they told me because I'm a woman, I cannot go because I can't go as a single woman. I have to go with a mahram. So I'm very excited about Vision 2030 and all the changes that is happening in the Saudi, not just for Saudi women, but for other women, that they could have further collaboration with the kingdom and with the women in Saudi Arabia. Would you mind please to elaborate more on your university's collaboration with different professors, women professors in different fields, especially the technical fields that you mentioned?
Wonderful.
Thank you. Here in the front, please, Professor Yasser. Oh. You can have the microphones coming here on the side.
Here.
The front.
Did you get her name?
No.
Thank you very much indeed. I think we can almost take it for granted that what COVID has done is to teach us to see the opportunities that we can do through technology. But it also has reminded us with equal force to be alerted to the importance of face-to-face interaction. So now there are opportunities in terms of technology, but also not to ignore the importance of, as Her Excellency said, face-to-face interaction. Because a lot of the learning is not teacher to student learning, but also student to student learning. There's quite a lot of that, and that is in Oxford and Cambridge. That is why colleges mix medics with physicists, with mathematicians. They just talk over sort of dinner and lunch and breakfast and learn that way. And I learned that myself when I came to Cambridge, that the best thing to do is just to be a good listener, because if you listen and active listening, you learn quite a lot. So learning from each other is very, very important. And that was difficult during COVID. But questions of mental health also are very, very important during that period. But the thing I want to ask Her Excellency is, how does she get her colleagues to keep up with the levels of energy that she has displayed to us today?
Professor Amal Fatani next to you. Yes, yeah.
Yes, Professor Amal.
Assalamu alaikum. This is a wonderful event. I participated in 3 before, and I'm very proud to be on the 4th one. I'm the cultural attaché for Saudi Arabia, and one of the examples Professor Inas mentioned as women empowerment, I'm very proud of that. My question is to Dr. Abdulaziz, actually. With the expectations of critical events continuing to happen in the world, with the connectivity that was exemplified during COVID, and how one small event affected the whole world, how can we as a world mitigate risks of the future?
I will go. I had 2 more on my list, and I will go back to the panel. I had Jassim back here, please.
Jassim from Bahrain. My first question is really, this change in Saudi, the social change in Saudi, how is it being felt in the rest of GCC countries? You know, the view in Bahrain is that if Saudi is opening up, becoming liberal, Bahrain has to become more liberal to cope with the change, really, because this is really. The other thought is to Dr. Abdulaziz. Any thoughts, really, if I turn to politics, any thoughts on Biden's visit to the region, the possible outcome? We cannot escape asking you about that. Thank you.
And then the final one right here, the lady just 2 rows in front of you.
Hi, Sharifa Fadl. What you've said and what you've done resonates a lot with what I've done, but in Qatar. So I have a couple of questions. One is, how involved are women in translating the vision into policies? The national vision?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh.
Yes.
How involved are Saudi women in the translation of the national vision into local policies? Coming from Bahrain and Qatar, we had a lot of problems trying to translate that. We weren't involved. It was more men that were translating what we needed. And the other questions on online learning. Have you seen more women, because of COVID now, wanting to go to the online educations, for example, getting degrees? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So, again, a number of questions. Your Excellency, reflect a little bit.
I will answer all the questions, again, by storytelling. I love telling stories. I'm a second generation faculty or a PhD holder in the family. So I am part of the system. Someone commented here, the esteemed professor here, you commented about my energy and enthusiasm because I was very long in the system. So now I'm really excited to be living in this era. So my mom went to the first school ever established for women to read and write in the country. She continued all the way to do her PhD. She became a dean. And then I was able to go into the field of health. And now my daughter studies she finished, actually, completed engineering. And so the prospect that's opening and evolving, but the leap and the jump that my daughters are living right now is way beyond the gap between my mom and myself. So that's one. And back to the question, for the professor from Qatar, Jassim from Bahrain. So my daughter now, when she was in the States, she calls me and she says, guess what? My colleagues from Kuwait and UAE and Qatar, and they want to come to Riyadh season. Can you help me secure reservations for them? Honestly. And she actually invited two of her friends who she met in the States from Bahrain, and they came and stayed for a weekend in my house to attend all the cultural activities that were taking place in Saudi Arabia. So it's really, societally, it was well perceived. And I know we are affecting the region because we used to go attend these events in the region. Now we actually host them in the country, and we welcome people from our friends from the region. How involved are females in the, I can tell you, I attended the first announcement of the National Transformation Program. I wasn't a president of a university at the time. I was a professor at King Saud University, and I was invited to come and attend and listen to the first announcement of the National Transformation Program, which was a language that we've never heard before, very exciting and very progressive. And now women are actually, there is a political willpower that ensures that female are included in the major councils and committees that pertain to decision-making and policy, of course, policy reform. Advice to young females, I don't think it changes throughout the years. I think the advice to young females is always the same. Move from entitlement to a culture of competitiveness. You know, the values, the human values, tolerance, grit, accountability, being assertive. These are the, you know, historical and will continue to be the same. But the Vision 2030 addresses this through one of its programs. It's called the Capacity Human Development Program. That's the slogan for that program is that your capabilities shape our future. So we actually give them the sense of responsibility that the future of the country is actually in their hands. Research, how to build a research career. Of course, it starts with passion, love for the process of scientific inquiry, enjoying the process, and then, of course, excelling in it. It is really it all pertains to the process of scientific inquiry, and of course finding the right environment and the right culture, the right university where you can actually develop answers to the questions that are very relevant to you. Collaboration with female professors, please, I would like your contact, and we will actually welcome you. And certainly we serve women, we serve female students at Princess Noura University, but we recruit the best talent irrespective of gender, because we want academia, we want the best for our students. But of course, we have a special favor for women. So if we have equal talents, we will always choose female professors. I'm very truthful and honest about this. And then again, how do we keep the enthusiasm? It's just palpable everywhere. You know, the quality of life sector. I've just touched upon the surface here today, and I talked about one university. Many other universities in the country are hosting great initiatives, and collectively and synergistically, all sectors are working together to attain that vision. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Any final word from Dr. Abdulaziz?
I think we already passed our time. Yes. The question for Professor Amal, since we're going to have dinner together, I'll sit next to her and give her a direct answer in a much more comprehensive way.
Great.
And sit with her and you will know where my enthusiasm comes.
Okay.
She was my former boss.
Well, wonderful. I think we're really off to a great start for our 2022 Gulf Research meeting. So thank you so much for really a wonderful presentation and insights.
We invite you all for our group photo that we normally take after the conference.
Just 2 words of thanks from my side to the team around Jaweed, your IT. It worked flawlessly. It was wonderful. So thanks for that. And then also, thank you also to my 3 young female research assistants at GRC, to Leila, to Amna and Layal, for all your help in setting this up. And you're just wonderful and great. And yes, we will now move on for the group photo on the lawn of King's College. So please join us moving over there and the reception and then the dinner. So thank you all for coming. And thank you so much.